Thank you for joining us on the last edition of Journalist Hangout this week. I'm Benga Oreshegun. Today on the program, Chief of Air Staff says exit of Niger and others from ECOWAS affecting counter-insurgency war. And later on the show, Supreme Court upholds judgment stopping Rivers allocation, reinstates Ameole-led assembly, and annuls Rivers local government elections. I'll be hanging out with Charles Ideho and Tony Nwaje, while Babajide Kolade Otitoju joins us via Zoom. Journalist Hangout starts right now. Now we begin the conversation. It is yet another win for the Martin Amaewhule-led faction of the Rivers State House of Assembly. The Supreme Court has affirmed the legitimacy of the 27 lawmakers loyal to the Minister of the Federal Capital Territory, Nyesom Wike. The judgment, delivered by a 5-member panel led by Justice Emmanuel Agin, dismissed Governor Siminalayi Fubara's suit challenging the lawmakers' defection from the People's Democratic Party (PDP) to the All Progressives Congress (APC), ruling that the legislative authority remains intact pending the determination of their status. The Apex Court directed the Central Bank of Nigeria and the Accountant General of the Federation to withhold funds to the state until a valid budget is passed by the reinstated House. The Supreme Court also declared the local government election held on the 5th of October 2024 invalid, stating that the election violated the Electoral Act in significant ways. This verdict led to wild jubilation in the state. Now let's share that with you. Now, meanwhile, the Supreme Court judgment is in line with what Babajide and other guests on the program have stressed, that the seats of the Martin Amaewhule-led assembly cannot be taken away by fiat. Let's share some of the discussions with you.
The Justice Omotosho ordered him to go and present that
to the Martin Amaewhule,
represent the budget. Of course, he did not represent the budget. He's been pushing to have those guys disqualified, that they are not members of the House.
Of the House,
now,
because of the defection.
The appeal court also affirmed the position of Justice Omotosho that 4 persons cannot represent a 31-man House of Assembly. And the Supreme Court has ruled on this matter in the past that, look, you need 2/3 of the members of the assembly to take big decisions like impeachment and all that. So those 3 guys, in the eyes of the law, do not represent the House. The courts will decide. There are many cases. The courts will decide. When the courts decide, this whole nonsense will end. You can't have 4 persons run a House. The Supreme Court has ruled on this matter in the past. And even in this judgment, the court said the decision to present the 2024 appropriation bill to only 4 members out of 31 amounted to gross violation of Section 91 of the 1999 Constitution. It means that what he did, presenting the budget to 4 persons at that time, they are now down to 3. It's wrong.
That is what
they are saying
it's illegal.
They are saying you go and represent it to a House of 31.
Counter General of the state spending funds that they deemed illegal, because they felt that the budget was not properly passed. So all of these issues would be decided upon, and they were brought by different people not just the House of Assembly alone. Different people filed suits. Now, they all went to appeal. So it's the final court will decide on all of these matters. But as I've said before, the biggest decision that we are awaiting is whether Martin Amaewhule and co had ceased to be members of the House, because the governor predicated his decision to not go before them to present the budget on the fact that, in his view, they had lost their seats. This is unprecedented. There's nowhere in Nigerian history where this has happened. Nowhere. Where a governor will say, okay, so people, they've lost their seat, therefore I'm not coming before them. Nowhere. And as I've said before, I'm waiting for some of the lawyers who go on air to talk about cases that have not been decided, to mention where and when people lost their seats automatically because they defected. And I insist that it is the courts that take those seats from them. The same way the INEC has not got the power to, after giving people a certificate of return, INEC has not got the power to say, well, I withdraw it. It's a court of law.
It's the courts that will order.
So, in fact, one of the statements we made is that it is only a court that can declare the seat of these lawmakers vacant.
I've been saying that for months.
In black and white. I think there's no two way about it. There's no interest here. We're just interpreting what is clear. And it's years of experience that is being brought to bear. So people should just please drop their sentiment, look at the law. Law does not send you. That's why they blindfold their face. Exactly. Until they see a paper from the court that these seats are declared vacant. That's when they can organize another election.
Yes.
So
I don't know what I need to mean. Some of these things is.
How can I go and conduct another election?
I don't understand.
Beautiful conversation there. We're just interpreting what is clear. We don't have a dog in this fight, but we are just interpreting. But Charles, the Supreme Court, it's delivered a judgment, and the Supreme Court is generally regarded as a court of national policy.
Court of final decision.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
What is the implication of what the judgment of the Supreme Court today?
Well, I think first we need to. This judgment is going to go a long way to settling so many things. The recalcitrant of some leaders. When leaders just stand out to stay, they can stand the laws on their heads. I think we're beginning to see. I hope that this judgment will begin to put that to the dustbin of history.
Okay.
That you could not just stand up. The laws are there, expressly stated on what ought to be done before certain actions can be taken. They just go ahead and do stuff. So I think it's beginning to make the subnational level of our democracy to begin to behave very, very appropriately. For instance, that election that was conducted last year, you couldn't. Why would you conduct an election when the voter registration was still ongoing? So what were you going to be using? And then there was even a court that even said that INEC should not make that available to RCEC and all that. But in contravention of all those ones, they went ahead to conduct an election, which of course has become a nullity in law. So as I said earlier, I do hope that several other states would take a cue from that to know that the era of just doing things the way you want is gone, so that we can begin to get our electoral system right. We can begin to do things the way it's supposed to be done properly, so that the democracy that we brought in 1999 could begin to stand, endure, and then people could do things, and so that you and I, who also maybe Tony as well, who also have aspiration in time to come, would know that things will be done properly.
So in other words, the election, the local government...
No, it's a nullity. It's a nullity. That's what it means.
So talk to me. The implication of this court judgment. Let's have your thought.
Like here. I know the Supreme Court, they've made a pronouncement. and the state is definitely going to abide by it. I'm just looking at the implication of, I'm just thinking of what's going on in Rivers as we speak, because I can tell you by tomorrow what may likely happen. The other camp has been waiting for this moment, and I've gone through this, I've gone on the internet and I've seen jubilation here and there. I see, would I call it crisis tomorrow? And this is where the federal government needs to, be firm here. Something has to be done. The state needs to be secured, because the governor's side is definitely going to push back. I know Wike has been waiting, and his people. So jubilation across Abuja and in Rivers. Tomorrow I envisage a situation whereby Amewule and his team, are going to march into the assembly. They are going to sit. I am foreseeing impeachment processes. A lot's going to happen.
In other words, if I get you right, what you're saying is the Supreme Court judgment has not put to bed the crisis.
No, it has ignited. You must exactly. It has ignited
another.
It has ignited another issue entirely.
Another issue.
You must obey the Supreme Court ruling. It's there. You cannot evade it.
Yeah, exactly.
So I'm now looking at what will happen, and I hope the security forces are ready because of the likely
for me. But I think.
But anyway, just hold that thought, okay? Team captain is also on Zoom. BKO, it's so good to have you join us on Journalist Hangout. BKO.
Thank you.
All right, so BKO, the Supreme Court has made the ruling. What is the implication of this judgment? And Charles also, Tony said something that this thing has not been put to bed. It might ignite into another crisis. What are your thoughts here?
Well, there is no court bigger than the Supreme Court. It is the final court in our country.
Okay.
You may not agree with the decision of the Supreme Court, but the Supreme Court's decision is final. We've had big decisions taken by the Supreme Court in the history of our country. Remember the trial of Obafemi Awolowo for treason.
Okay.
Heavens didn't fall. So what we are saying is the Supreme Court has taken a decision, and the decision stands. I do not foresee any crisis that the security agencies won't be able to overcome. The governor of the state has to behave responsibly.
Okay.
His position is a creation of the law. His position is a creation of the law. Therefore, he has to obey the decision of the Supreme Court. There's no two ways about it. And there have been governors that this kind of big decisions didn't go their way, but they had no choice. They had to obey the decision of the Supreme Court. So I expect that for now, the decision of the Supreme Court at least lay to rest the big controversies happening, that we have had to live with. We waited for the Supreme Court to take a decision. Now the Supreme Court has taken that decision, and there's nothing anyone can do about it at this stage. I had expected what the Supreme Court, the decision of the Supreme Court, because as I used to tell my friends, a lot of whom were getting unnecessarily emotional about this matter, the law does not care about your emotions. That is the fact. Many people jumping into TV studios to argue blindly were just being emotional. So now, I've not seen any court that would decide that at this time it makes sense for 4 individuals or 3 individuals to
I can hear it. but they cannot hear us in the studio.
The House of Assembly. What was going on in the past had to end at some point because it was a show of shame. And I'm happy that at the end of the day, the Supreme Court ruled that the governor should go and present the budget to a properly constituted House of Assembly, Rivers State. A 3-man House of Assembly, one of them as Speaker and 2 other fellows, cannot be deemed properly constituted. It is an aberration. I've never seen it in all my years on this earth in Nigeria and anywhere else. I've never seen where 3 persons ran the House. Now we are being told that he has to go and present that budget. Otherwise, Rivers State will be denied its statutory funds from the Federation account, funds due to it from the Federation account. Because you've got to find a way to make the governor respect the law and respect the judgment of court. He has no rights, he has no power to choose what judgments of the courts that he will obey. There's no person who has that power. Obasanjo lost more than 8 cases as a sitting president, but he was duty bound to obey the law. For example, Obasanjo tried to remove Atiku as his deputy. It was the Supreme Court that saved Atiku. And the Supreme Court ordered that Atiku's name should be on the ballot for the 2007 election. And that decision, despite the fact that time was against INEC obeyed that decision.
Okay.
President Obasanjo didn't say because he was president and #1 citizen, therefore he will not respect the order of the Supreme Court. And Atiku was on the ballot. Although today Atiku is saying the judiciary is the biggest problem of our country. Of course, he's not saying the truth. The politicians are the biggest problem of our country, not the judiciary. And he is one of the politicians.
Okay.
So this judgment has far-reaching implications. It lays to bear the argument whether 3 persons can continue to run the House of Assembly in Rivers State. That has been laid to rest. Whether 3 persons can pass a budget, that has been laid to rest. And the Supreme Court descended heavily on the governor of Rivers State, accused him of destroying the state just because he didn't want to be impeached. The Supreme Court talked about the assembly complex that he demolished. So Governor Suba knows what to do now. Once the decision of the final court in the land goes against you, you have no choice. You have to obey. You don't have 2 heads. People bigger than you in the past had to live with the decision of the Supreme Court. And you will not be an exception because you did not create democracy in our country. People fought for democracy. Some of us lost our friends. We risked our lives. And we do not want anything to happen to democracy in our country.
Okay.
The courts, the decisions of the courts must be obeyed. And that is what I expect to see.
All right. Now, you've heard BKO. But moving forward with this judgment, yes, it's final. What is the next line of action for the Rivers State governor?
Well,
what option is open for him?
The option, because there's something that we should not just throw away.
What's that?
There are 2 angles here. There is the angle of the Constitution, which of course the governor is bound to obey because you can't appeal. I mean, the appellate level ends at the Supreme Court.
Exactly.
Okay? Because after that, you go to God. I mean, you can't see God face to face to go appeal. So that's on the one hand. On the other hand is what Tony brought in earlier.
Yes.
We cannot just. I don't think we should just push it away with the way of the hand, because there are interests in Rivers State as we speak that are holding up the ladder for even the ones they represent. For there are interests that are Wike. The Wike interest, I mean, Amogule and rest of them. There's also another interest that we don't want these people to also having to do. So what I'm going to say, which of course I'm going to be building my argument upon, is that, yes, if the governor decides to, which of course he has to do, to allow them sit and then represent that budget, that's one. On the other hand, there are people who are going to be saying, if he's that government is going to be alone right now in the wilderness, because the people he's going to be working with are not his friends. The people who have been there that he has he's drawn the wrong underneath their feet. Are you saying you're going to be applauding the governor? So there are interests that are going to be telling the governor, you must not do, even though they might find a way not to allow him, but which is of course going to bring in the crisis that Tony also envisaged. But Rivers State has every cause to make that place peaceful, and then obeying this court judgment is number one to do that. And then the governor has to now stand up to tell the other interests to say, well, the River State is our state. We have one other state. All we need to do, whether your interests are, let's subsume all our interests under the interest of River State so that we can have peace and progress, and also so that everybody can be happy. But would it happen? It's a rhetorical question that I have no answer to.
Will it happen? But representing the budget, was the Supreme Court specific about which fiscal year should be represented? Is it the expended 2024 budget or the 2025 budget?
It can't be the expended budget.
But I think it's the status quo.
Yeah. I know that's, but it's going to be tough.
Status quo.
Because it's been spent, the budget has been implemented, executed. So I don't know, and I don't want to go into that judgment because, of course, the Supreme Court has spoken.
Yes.
Yeah, but I know you know the answer. It's been executed. Money has been spent. How are you going to represent that project?
In nullity.
I don't know how it's going to be. In practical things, I don't know how it's going to be possible. And that's a fact. And then moving forward, for me, Supreme Court has spoken.
Yes.
That's the end. That's a full stop. But to ensure peace in Rivers, I think we need to go now. Beyond what the court has said now. The two main gladiators must sit down. That's why I spoke earlier in that direction, because we know what's definitely going to happen in Rivers. Just as Chad said, people are going to be on the governor's side and say, I'm just trying to imagine what's going on
right
at the government house in Rivers right now. What they are thinking, they are thinking at the moment, what they are planning to come out with anytime from now.
Event.
Yeah, so that is what, and at the end of the day, there'll be some kind of shakeups. What I envisage will happen that will guarantee peace in Rivers is if these two people sit down with their people and see how they can ensure that apart from the Supreme Court judgment, how do we ensure that this does not spill?
Over time, myself and BK, we've always had this conversation: a political solution or a legal solution.
Yeah. At this point,
and BK has always talked about
the social solution too.
BK has always talked about the legal solution. The court is the only one that.
Yes. The court has ruled now. Yeah, but
have there not been court decisions? I mean, several ones that were not.
Exactly. All right, gentlemen, we need to go on this break. But when we return, BK, you've always talked about that. It's only a court solution, the legal solution, that can solve the situation in Rivers State. But now that the court has made a pronouncement, do you think a political solution is necessary afterwards? We'll have that discussion right after this break. Don't go anywhere. Still Journalist Hangout.
10 years ago, we were created with a mission and vision to light up Africa. Now it's 15 years of shining bright in the glory of our amazing might. JRB Solar has made darkness take flight to keep shining in the splendor of our light. From the serene street of Abuja to the bustling street of Lagos, a light shining from Ibagwaka to Lapai and Calabar to Aba, and to all angles of Africa. We are the definition of innovation and dedication for the nation, defying the ugly odds to create a world full of laughter, love and light. JRB Solar, the Ogbefio Garaya one of solar energy. Onye Jimjim, Oba Imole, the Agabai one. You know, people doubted you when you were born. They said renewable energy may not thrive, but you survived and strived with every fiber of your being to redefine success. You made us know that true success is allowing our little light to shine in dark places. Happy 15th anniversary, JRB Solar Investment Limited.
Quality Coleman wires and cable. Great quality. Now with the new look.
All right, still journalist hangout. If you just joined us, interesting times, I tell you. I still have Tony Wanje right here and Charles Ideho. BKO is also joining us via Zoom. All right, BKO, are you still with us? All right, so BKO, before we went on that break, I asked you a question. Now that the Supreme Court has given his judgment, do you still think a political solution is still necessary? Or you still think a political solution is still possible?
I doubt it. I doubt if political solution is possible because the combatants went to great lengths to damage one another. And when you go to extraordinary lengths to destroy your adversary, it is difficult for anybody to bring you together and preach peace. I predicted at that time that the committee set up by Pandev, led by set up by the late Edwin Clark and headed by Obon Victor Atta, will achieve nothing. I predicted that the combatants will not go before the committee. The question I want to ask you is, what has come out of the Pandev Reconciliation Committee? Absolutely nothing, because it should have happened earlier. But rather than having it happen earlier, the members of Pandev, the elders in the state, took sides in the matter. Everyone had a dog in the fight. So once you take side in that way, nobody will trust you to be able to hammer out some form of reconciliation. If Fubara called Wike the rat that was eating the Gari, and he said he had used Otapiapia to kill the rat that was eating the Gari, everyone could understand what he meant. Now, a man who made you governor will easily forgive you after you described him as a rat that was eating the bag of Gari. Let's face it, it makes it difficult for reconciliation to happen. I think they've gone too far. And in politics, you cannot force people to be friends. I always say that there are some politicians in our country who will never agree to be in the same party. And I've been proved right again and again. You cannot bring Atahiru Bafarawa and Magatakada Wamako into the same party. It's not going to happen. Kwankwaso and Gwanduje at this time will never be in the same party. One would rather leave the party for the other. And we're seeing it happen. So there are people who never agree to even be in the same party, not to talk of working together. So I think that in the early days of the conflict, the combatants went too far. It will be difficult for them to forgive one another, given what they had said about one another, given what they had done to one another. This is the thing. The rat that was eating the Gari, we have used Otapiapia to kill him. Come on. There are things you don't say even in conflict. You must leave room for the possibility of reconciliation.
Exactly.
But when you say certain things, it becomes difficult to walk back. In my view, I still retain the feeling and the view that it is a legal solution that will solve this problem. Because, look, once the Supreme Court takes its decision, it's final and it's binding on everyone. That has always been the case in our country. And it is not going to start with Fubara that it is with Fubara that people will not obey Supreme Court judgment. No. except we want the democracy that we labored to institute to die in our hands. And it's not going to happen because a lot of the people constituting a big threat to democracy today, they did not join us in fighting for democracy. They did not confront the military. Or some of us confronted the military. We lost our friends in the process. We can tell stories about how people like Bagada Kalto were killed. And we were working together. We can tell stories about people who went to jail, Kunle Ajibade and the rest of them. So, the decision of the Supreme Court is binding.
Yeah, okay.
It's as simple as that.
Okay.
I do not envisage that we will have a problem that we cannot control. The political leaders in the states, in their own interest, now have to sheath their swords and allow the judgment of the Supreme Court to take root.
For the interest of...
That's no other... resorting to violence is not the solution.
It's not the solution.
And if people resort to violence, then the state has the resources to put out the violence. It's as simple as that.
Okay. Charles, your thoughts here?
Yeah, my thoughts on
do you agree, BK?
Yeah, I do agree. But again, it doesn't always go. In politics, 1% is always 2.
You still think anything is possible?
I know anything is possible, but you see, if you look at the antecedents, if you put Rivers State on a map, political map, we know that there's, I think it seems as if, wrongly so, it seems as if Rivers State thrives on violence. You know, any little thing you see things sparkling and all that. You see, as I said, you know, when we went to break, we were saying here that politicians, they always find a way to buy time. The judgment of the Supreme Court is final. We all agree. That's founded. But the question is that with the politicians and also the several interests within the state, they also look for a way to buy time. Okay, I've not seen the CTC, the certified true copy.
Yes.
Okay, we are trying to study it. Oh, we will do this one. All these things.
All just to buy time.
Just to buy time while they are working on how to possibly circumvent the whole thing and all that. But again, as I said, you can't change that Supreme Court judgment. It's there and it's there, it's final.
But you can't circumvent the Supreme Court judgment.
Again, you know, there has been several cases in this country when the Supreme Court has said certain things. We know that it is true. But the politicians always look for an open window.
Loophole.
There's a window, they're always looking for that window to latch on to say, okay, what can we do? Exactly.
The Supreme Court cases.
They might obey, but they will find a little way to delay it so that they will be able to, like Fubara right now, we know that it's a loan. It's a loan in the manner of speaking. So would you Fubara, knowing that he's going to be confronting his enemies, politically speaking, to just, okay, go and reconvene, I'll meet you, knowing that he has nothing to back him up. So he will look for a backup before he is going to present himself before them. It is when he's going to procure the backup that the issue of the delay will come in for them to. No, you look at it, very soon you will hear all these things and they come to play.
Let me have your thoughts here.
I just pity the people of Rivers State, sincerely speaking. Yeah, I just pity the people of Rivers State at this juncture because since the current administration came on board, it's been one issue or the other, one court issue or this or that, crisis here and there, and it has to stop. It has to stop. I say it again, and I'm going to say it again. I'll keep saying it, that if definitely the Supreme Court, they've ruled, you can't dispute it because there's no other court, there's no other layer of court. They're going to, the state government is going to appeal, but just as Chav said, we are talking about Nigerian politicians here. You know, I don't want to mention a particular government who went and asked the Supreme Court to review his case.
Yeah, exactly.
So if things are possible here, what I am saying is this, and it's that Governor Simfubara and the current minister of the FCT must sit down. Definitely.
Okay, when you say,
just as Jide said, it's going to be a bit difficult.
Yes.
But again, I'm putting the people of Rivers State in perspective here.
To insist.
You said everybody is equal, but in politics, somebody has to be ahead. Otherwise, all of us will be in government house with different offices.
Now I say, but when you say sit down, Who has that capital to bring them to the table?
The
should be at the table for
the president?
You think the president should
done
get
it before?
Involved in
No, he's done it before. I'm not calling him. At this point, it has gone beyond him. You know, at the early stage of this whole, he called them. He told them, someone them to Aso Rock, and then they all went back, go and implement this.
Nothing came out of it.
And then nothing came out of it. But I still insist. I don't know how it's going to happen.
Yes.
But without them putting this thing, sitting down, it's and then I'm not just mentioning the Rivers State governor and Wike. They are not the owners of Rivers. There are some serious stakeholders in Rivers State that are equally involved and are concerned as we speak right now. And I'm not sure they are sitting down quietly. Okay. Things are working as we speak because of this judgment. If they don't sit down, I've told you the likely scenarios, things that will happen between now and Monday. What is Monday? Between now and 12 a.m. today, things will happen in Rivers. That is where that's why I said earlier, that is where federal government at this point needs to be ahead of the game. Because we have to look at the interests of the people of Rivers State beyond politics.
Okay.
Beyond politics of few individuals. Because we are talking about two people fighting here. And most times it's not about the people. But it has to be about the people.
But it should be about the people.
It should be about the people.
Mikeo, when two elephants fight, the grass suffers. Let's look at the Rivers people now. This judgment, is this a victory for the Rivers people, or is this victory for rule of law?
It's victory for both, in my view.
Both.
Let's leave the Fubara and Wike. Let's put them aside. In the meantime, does it make sense to you that 3 persons should run a House of Assembly? Tell me where you've ever had that happened.
It's unbelievable.
So if that was the case, can it be beneficial to the generality of our people when decisions in the assembly are being taken to the exclusion of the representatives of the majority of the people? You've ensured that the people do not get involved in decision making if their representatives do not have a say. If the governor simply goes to 3 persons, it's the height of absurdity. And the Supreme Court has stepped in now to say, no, enough of that, because this was an embarrassment to us as a nation. The most backward African countries, this sort of thing had never happened. 3 persons, one of them speaker. So let's get down to brass tacks here. A decision has been taken. I've not seen any Nigerian governor that because the decision of the Supreme Court went against him, he now started doing something funny. I've not seen that governor, and I'm a historian. I've not seen that governor. Even during military rule, decisions went against the military, and they were obligated to obey the decision of the courts. People like Ganifa Wemi, they were always going to court against the military, and they got a lot of judgments, which the military, despite the fact that they like to rule by decree, they were obligated to obey. Right. So I do not see how
it's going out.
I do not believe that violence will break out. I believe that the leaders now will behave responsibly. And the leader of the state, the leader is the governor. The governor knows now that he has to obey the Supreme Court decision. And I expect that Martin Amaewhule and co. will now have full access to the premises of the House of Assembly for them to continue, because the Supreme Court directed that they should do their job, they should be allowed to do their job without hindrance. So The political solution now is for the governor to say, okay, I was waiting for the final court to take his decision. Now that it has taken a decision, it has not gone in my favor, but I will respect the Supreme Court. So because the Supreme Court validated his position as governor, so people took him to court. So he has to abide by the decision. Let's not be pessimistic and believe that, oh, maybe violence will break out and know that there will be violence. No. Let's be hopeful that these people will allow reason to prevail. Because they know that any wrong step that they take can lead to loss of lives and all that. There is no responsible politician who will want to do that. If you are in government in the interest of your people, you are not going to take steps that could lead to loss of lives, that could compromise the peace and tranquility of your state. So the Supreme Court has taken a decision. It has to be obeyed. And all of the transactional individuals going to Rivers State for the purpose of making money and worsening the crisis in the state. I think at this state, they should respect themselves. They should stay in their own states and allow the people of Rivers to resolve their issues. Going to Rivers State to make money and causing more crisis, because you can see that there's so much money to make in that state. This is the time for such people to respect themselves, stay in their own states, and allow the people of Rivers State to settle their differences, to resolve their differences, rather than going there to worsen the crisis in the state. The people I'm talking about, they know themselves, but they are so incorrigible. They keep going to that state just to cause more crisis. These are crisis, people profiteering from crisis, and it's unfortunate.
All right, beautiful one, BKO.
People who profiteer from crisis.
Just in maybe 10 seconds or 20 seconds, your final thoughts on this.
People who profiteer from crisis, they don't moralize. The more the crisis, the more money they make. So those people will never pray for any peace. They will never. So and I actually
you agree with him?
I agree with him for because Babajide is wishing and also hoping. But I hope his hopes and his wishes will come to pass.
All right, gentlemen, let's move straight to our next conversation. Regional security frameworks rely on collaborations, share intelligence, and joint military operations to combat insurgency. The recent exit of Niger Republic, Mali, and Burkina Faso from ECOWAS threatens to weaken these coordinated efforts.